Alright, let's do another video. I'm sure you guys seen this video. It's been shared out quite a bit. I'll play it first and then I'll...
You're on private property here.
I'm sorry, I'm just asking you if you're taking samples.
I'm not, I just like you refer me to your public information officer, have you taken samples?
I can't answer any of your questions.
You can't. Well, then why should I answer any of your questions?
Because this is not site.
Because of what?
We need to know who's coming and going on this site.
But this is private property.
We're working down here.
You're standing on private property right now.
I'm sorry, but I need to know.
I have to check with my public information officer.
Okay,
You're on private property.
I'm sorry.
The landowner doesn't want you trespassing.
Alright guys. You've probably seen that video. If you haven't... I can get where, this person's coming from because, it is private property. But, I mean, this poor person is just doing their job. Basically, probably being used by our company because, no safety equipment. Well, besides a hard hat. And, down there messing with the streams. And, like, through that video, there was a guy in the stream. See, this is the same thing what happens to me when I go down and film by the derailment site. Okay, I'm not on the derailment site. I can be across the road. Totally across the road. And on top of a hill. As soon as I get there, what do them traffic control people do? Call. We got somebody down here with a camera. Somebody's down here recording. What? Or the one time, I had a dude come up to me and he's like, they told me to ask you to leave. Really? Yeah, they told me to ask you to leave. Do you realize this is private property? I'm sitting on somebody else's property. You closed the road. You didn't close the grass in the hillside. Yeah, but they told me to ask you to leave. Why do you send... I know they're just doing their job, and I take it easy on them. I don't yell at them. But why do they need to send the little folks to do a big man's job? Was that, big man in the creek, was the one that sent her to, ask this question? I don't understand why it matters who's taking samples, but they always send their little minions, I call them. People just working. They need a job. They need the money, and even all these guys cleaning up. I mean, they're basically getting used by their company. I mean, they have no safety equipment at all. We had workers get sick down there. It's just ridiculous. I don't know. I just seen that, and I thought it was kind of interesting because it's like, why are they worried about who's taking samples of the water? Last time I don't think they own the water, but hey. Alright. I decided to play that in the beginning because I didn't know where I was going to show that in at. What'd you say if I told you this all happened before? 40 years ago. No, you'd be like, nah, really? Yeah, really. 40 years ago this happened. So, this is almost the, if you look at this picture, for the most part, it kind of looks like somebody took an East Palestine picture and made it black and white. and posted it. So this happened in a town of Livingston, Louisiana. It's kind of weird. It's like this has happened before. They know the fallout of this happening 40 years ago, almost 41 years now, but yet they decided to go through with it, and then they continue to lie to your face with everything is okay. There's nothing wrong with anything around here, but yet 40 years ago the same thing basically happened, just different town. All right, September 28th, 1982. Train jumped the tracks, and more than 30 tanker cars filled with hazardous chemicals or fuel crashing near a commercial strip of Livingston, Louisiana, 20 miles east of Baton Rouge. Chemical leaks and smoke plagued the area for days. The cars were sitting, they were burning and smoldering 5-6 days after the derailment. Wow. Really? Sounds familiar, don't it, guys? 5-6 days after the derailment? The cars was wow. I don't know. I was down there in like weeks, and that one car was still smoking. But anyways, one of the cars just blew up. The thing went 600 feet in the air. Both were major train crashes. Both involved some of the same chemicals, including vinyl chloride. Both communities saw train cars catch fire, and chemical fires pollute the air. I like this. I like this little stat they threw in here. Yeah, I know. 1,000 derailments happen a year. They're pretty common. In 2021, they had 12. What did we have going on in 2021? Where everything was closed, and you basically needed a pass to go to the store, and there was no, crap paper. Everybody took all the toilet paper, but there was only 12. Few have been as impactful as the one in Livingston, where cleanup efforts, health monitoring, and water testing continued for at least 3 decades. I think we need to change our motto, change the motto in this sign. I'm sure we could have have people submit ideas. In East Palestine, a lot of things that happened seemed eerily similar to what happened in Livingston over 40 years ago, said Bennett. The local judge spent decades overseeing the aftermath of a legal settlement reached after the derailment. The derailment and subsequent explosion stirred Livingston residents awake, sent a fireball into the air that splintered a grove of pine trees and blew in the brick front of a nearby home. One Livingston resident had jumped from a window of a burning home and run into safety. So this sounds like this happened in a more residential part of this town. We heard a roar. Jerry Couture, a businessman who lived less than a mile from the derailment, it shook our house. Force cracked the foundation and burst the windows of the restaurant he owns. We loaded up and got out of town. And this 2,700 people within 5 miles of the derailment was evacuated. So they evacuated 5 miles. What they do here? A mile? Wonder what changed. Chemical wise. I think vinyl chloride's vinyl chloride, but hey. 4 days after the derailment, pieces of a train car exploded and rocketed in the air, smashing into a building. setting fire to a mobile home. Residents couldn't return for about 2 weeks as chemicals within the train cars continued to explode, burn, and seep into the ground. Okay, I can see on something not be allowed to go back when something's exploding. I get that. Burning and seeping into the ground. Wow. How quick did they let people back in town here? They didn't even test your air in your house. Call us. We'll come test your air if you want your air tested, but you gotta, basically live in your house for like 2 weeks before we get there. Then we're gonna walk in with this machine, and it's gonna tell us that you shouldn't be here, but we're just gonna lie and say, put something on the paper that is way different than what the machine was showing. Yeah, that's the people Norfolk Southern contracts out. In the end, 19 homes or buildings were destroyed or severely damaged. 200,000 gallons of chemicals spilled and were absorbed into the ground. Wow. I think we had more than 200,000, didn't we? Well, I don't have it pulled up. We had over 200,000 in vinyl chloride. Okay. Well, then TSB, damn engineer was drunk. He's drinking before the derailment. An untrained clerk has been at the train's controls. So we had somebody drinking and somebody driving that don't know how to drive, I guess. Let's see here. Derailments in Livingston and East Palestine share several parallels. Livingston, 43 of the 101 cars jumped the tracks, including more than 30 carrying hazardous or flammable chemicals. In East Palestine, 38 of the train's 151 cars derailed, including 11 with toxic chemicals. Both trains were carrying vinyl chloride, a colorless flammable gas used to create, PVC plastic. Chemical can cause disorientation, numbness, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Both trains were also carrying ethylene glycol, which can cause a sore throat and nausea at high concentrations. Listen to this. Both locations, officials decided to vent and burn the vinyl chloride to prevent more explosions, a process that polluted the air with toxic smoke. So if you've done this before, you know the fallout of this town, and for some odd reason you think East Palestine is going to be different. 40 years, vinyl chloride is still vinyl chloride. Some people claim the nausea and headaches. Well, imagine that. That's what we have in town, huh? They turned a bottle of water. Afraid it would contaminate the groundwater. Well, sounds familiar, huh? They were upset, having meetings all over the place. Air quality and water. That's what the conversations were about. They're afraid to drink the water, huh? Yeah, we all seen, the wine and, everybody, drinking the water. Okay, yeah, the water's safe to drink today, but doesn't mean it's going to be, safe to drink in the future. But I don't know what kind of world they live in. I'll say not the, I think we should have DeWine and Shaw and everybody. Would somebody be willing to, donate their house and have them come live in town? Wasn't it Shaw said he would stay? He would absolutely stay here because the EPA said it's safe. I think we should have them come stay in town for a while. See if they get any symptoms. The demonstration only proves the water is safe to drink today. Regular water monitoring and something something implemented for decades in Livingston will be needed. Was a professor of environmental science at Wright State University. We don't know how much vinyl chloride seeped into the ground. Once it gets in the ground, it will travel. Wow. EPA, I think you should take notes. It could take months or longer to create a detailed three-dimensional map of where the toxic chemicals enter the ground and if and how they're spreading at the East Palestine site. It's possible that seeping chemicals could travel towards East Palestine public well sites. More data and field evidence is needed to evaluate the risk of drinking water. Cleaning a contaminated aquifer could take 5 to 10 years. 14 lawsuits in East Palestine. 14, wow. Last time I heard we were 5. Weeks after the Livingston derailment, local attorneys filed a class action suit against Illinois' Central Gulf Railroad. Class action was settled in 1985. $39 million settlement payout to more than 3,000 residents. Created a commission to make decisions about recovery and set aside funds to pay for long-term impacts. Settlement provide funding for 30 years of regular water monitoring and establish a health clinic in Livingston. Wow, that sounds familiar too, guys, doesn't it? But this is what they get at this health clinic. The residents could go get a physical and blood testing each year for contaminants. Wow, they're refusing to test for, stuff here. You go in the clinic here, you just, tell them your symptoms, you just, get put on a piece of paper, okay, this person has a headache, 69% of people have headaches, this many people have anxiety. Well, I don't think anxiety shouldn't be on the list because that's just a given. But maybe the next one down was something, bad and they didn't want that on the list, so, it's just how they play the words. That's how government does. As part of the remediation, workers dug out affected soil to a depth of 50 feet. They digging down 50 feet? Get my tape measure out because I don't think they're down 50 feet. They also pumped out contaminated water. This one had some dry cleaning solvent. I guess in it too. Let's see here. Contaminants did spread gradually in soil and groundwater, but within acceptable limits. See, EPA always wants to push this acceptable limits thing around. But you actually look at their limits. I don't know where they get it from. There was concern it would bleed through different levels of aquifers. We never had evidence to enter into the Livingston's drinking water system. While they said it was in there, but it was acceptable limits. Emotional scars lasted at least a decade. Fayard, he represented a dozen of communities after the derailments, is now working with East Palestine plaintiffs. So, imagine that. This has happened before. You would never have guessed. Look at that. Take a picture of that in East Palestine, put them together, man. So, they made this decision at least one other time, and made it again, knowing very well what the, fallouts were, and then they just continue to think you believe their lies when they say it's safe. I don't know. I can't believe that, man. So you can't say they didn't have nothing to go off because they did the exact same freaking thing 40 years ago. All right, guys. I just wanted to do that this quick video because I'm like, really? You read this, you must read about East Palestine. Except we didn't have. If that happened in town, we probably would have buildings down. But luckily it happened. That far outside of town. But yeah, interesting. It happened one other time, at least one other time, and they knew the fallout from this, but yet they still continued to do what they did, and then they still continued to lie. Why was my camera flickering? They continued to lie to your face and expect you to believe their lies when there's so much, data coming back that kind of, throws other lies away. But all right, guys. Just wanted to go over that with you guys real quick. Pretty interesting. All right.